Thanks for tuning in, guys. Welcome to Always Outnumbered, Never Outgunned. I'm here with my guest, Austin Menard. For a quick intro on him, I deployed with him in 2011 to Afghanistan, attached to SOTF East. He's one of the best soldiers I know, and to be honest, he's the reason I'm still alive to this day. And nowadays, he's a family man and working for the DOD, I believe, if you want to classify it that. But hey, Austin, thanks for being here.
Thanks, man. Good to be here.
Enjoying your lunch break, I see.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Gotta get it in.
All right, so just before we were recording, we were kind of bullshitting about all this stuff getting shot out of the sky. So, Austin, again, please tell me what you think it is. Like 3 objects been shot down after this Chinese air balloon.
My personal opinion is, it's if they're all coming from the same place, and that is China or an adversary of the United States, I personally think that it's a probing mission. Send a bunch of balloons. You have, when you release them, then you get, when the stuff start popping up on social media, when did the military start responding? But once they enter a certain person's airspace, you can gauge their defenses and response time by it, because obviously somebody's tracking it, and then you can see, well once it entered their airspace, it took however long to be intercepted and shot down. So I think it's gauge of defenses and airspace.
Honestly, that makes the most sense, and it's definitely way more boring than Aliens or something like that. But yeah, you're probably right. It's probably just okay, how fast these people are going to respond this type of situation. It's crazy. I saw Dan Crenshaw, what was I to say? He posted some information about, I guess 2 of them in Alaska were the size of an ATV. The third one was balloon shaped, the size of a small car, I guess. And that's all we got.
Yeah.
That's crazy shit. I still think it's crazy shit, though. It's interesting to me.
It is weird.
But the thing I'm go ahead.
I said we're going to find out sooner or later.
Well, you hope. I just think it's weird, though. We found out that the air balloon was Chinese off the rip. Why wouldn't that be the same? Why wouldn't that be the same here, though?
I don't know.
You don't get paid the big bucks.
It could, they all could be from China, or the first one could have just been from China, but it also doesn't help because nobody's being transparent with the information. So they keep saying they're holding stuff back because of national security. I don't understand what a breach of national security would do if you just tell us, hey, they're all from China.
Right, exactly. It's a big fucking surprise, honestly.
So
yeah, that's I don't know. I saw. I think the Biden administration was I understand we're building speculation the longer we wait, but but we have to. Okay, we can't handle the truth, obviously.
Yeah.
So nothing's been shot down, not by you, by Georgia, not yet, not today.
No. Not today.
just the Amazon Prime fucking drones, right? Out in Georgia, they don't like them robots.
No, that shit down quick.
All right, so as we were talking about earlier, for the audience, me and Austin, we deployed together. We were in the Army together. Lots of funny times. You know what I mean? I just for instance, give me one of your funniest memories you have, either stateside or being over there. I know we have a ton.
I don't know. It was always a good time at Riley and then training, but I don't know. I think one of the things that sticks out that I really enjoyed is when we made a calendar of who we were going to fuck with that day.
Oh my gosh, I forgot. Yeah, it got. I literally remember a day. Beat Menard's ass day. That was legit.
Tell your mama jokes day or beat Robert's ass day. Somebody getting.
Woods is a homo day, that was a common occurrence. Yeah. Oh shit, I forgot about. I have pictures of that calendar. We would go walk a bouquet on the trail of tears. Oh my gosh, just hardcore shit to say the least. That's awesome, man. That's hilarious. I know you have such a better memory than me about that stuff too. Yeah, like I don't remember all that stuff very well. I don't know why. I remember like the big occurrences, but like you were talking about like
I
stealing a fucking car or a motorcycle that one day, right?
Yeah, so there was a day that we nothing was going on, and then the ODA, it was, his last name was Lommel, and then he was the team captain, and he walked in and was like, "Hey, I need a couple dudes to go pick up a motorcycle from the district center."
The
And I can't
DC.
I can't remember, I can't remember who from our unit was like, "Hey, blah blah," but it was me, you, I want to say Espina and Mutis maybe,
Okay.
that went to Cop Garcia. But we had the Razor and two four wheelers, and uh, we left Cop Pinnage by ourselves, fucking specialists and privates, and went out on fucking four wheel Razor, drove all the way to town by ourselves into the district center, found a fucking Parwaz fucking motorcycle, checked the serial number, put it on the back, and fucking auto Kunar style.
Dishes. I remember one time I remember they told me like, "Hey, go pick up some whatever his fucking name was," and he was like, just some, I think. Some contractor guy. I don't know. He wasn't in the military. Just go pick up some contractor guy on the road. So I took the Razor out there by myself, pick up some random motherfucker on the side of the road. And as we're coming in, we start getting mortared. And you know, I was, that's my job, right? It's like I race in, one of the mortars hit and like rock the side by side. I park this shit in the airfield and just dip out and leave this motherfucker in the side by side to fend for himself. I run over to the mortar pit to like return fire. That was I remember that shit. And he was just like sitting there like, oh, where do I go? What do I do? Like, welcome to Penance, bro. Yeah, that's how we roll.
That shit was that fucking you crazy. Just random shit like that.
Yeah, like and like you know, you're younger at the time. Like you just don't think about. I never thought about the consequences. Not even once. Like
Like never in my fucking right mind, as right now, long as I ended up spending the army, and then all the time that I've worked for the army now, would I ever tell a bunch of private specialists to go into town by themselves in one of the hottest provinces in the country and be like, "Oh, go fucking GTA that fucking motorcycle, come back." I would never tell them that, because
and
my luck, one of them would get kidnapped and have their heads cut off.
well, we had a Spina, man. He's like basically a local. Remember when that dude crashed the GMV into the Hesco wall, so you never had to drive?
Yeah, yeah, I do.
I didn't see the wall. Like you didn't see the fucking 10-foot wall in front of you. He was the best.
No, he was a real one, because he realized, he was like, "Man, if I fuck this up now, I ain't got to drive this whole way."
So actually, that's a question I have for you. Like, what you drove? So Austin was our driver for our gun truck for most of the deployment. I mean, like, what was that like with our lives in your hands, literally in the back of the fucking truck? I have a feeling probably pretty stressful.
No, well, I've always been a good driver. Before I joined the army, I went through Florida's police academy.
Oh yeah, that's
And
right.
I went through all of their defensive driving. So between their defense and then all the driver's training in the army, and then all the experience I got in Afghanistan, and even now, I don't let other people drive. One, I don't trust people. But if we're in a wreck, it's going to be because I did it, not because some other idiot was driving. But I don't know. I enjoyed it. I mean, on one hand, I looked at it when we took a truck and we went out on mission and we were mounted. I thought about it in a couple different ways. One, it keeps me safer. And on one point, I didn't really care, but because I had a kid due soon,
Yeah.
that kept me safer. So I did feel a little better about that. I enjoyed driving because I was able to keep control of the vehicle, and I knew that if I worried about the vehicle, nobody else had to worry about it. So I felt like I would do a pretty good job at that. Um, but I've always been like aware and shit like that. So I enjoy driving because it was like my duty to keep everybody in that truck safe. Um, Now, obviously, when shit started popping off, plenty of times I got out and directed fire and stuff like that. But for the most part, I mean, it was cool.
Yeah,
It was cool.
sure. And to lead into that, actually, so for the audience doesn't know, um, we got into a serious tick one time, and we had a kid pop. We were inside of a Wadi system. The kid popped up, had RPG. Our gunner yelled RPG, and luckily here, Austin hit the fucking gas. The RPG would have smoked me, like it would have went right through me or some shit. They hit the ground right in front of me, but if he hit the gas, it would have hit the back of the truck. It was
So
pretty intense day.
out of every engagement we ever had, that one, most of that engagement I remember completely. There's a couple places in there that's hazy from it, but like for everybody that just wants to know, we were doing
Yeah,
a
please
movement.
walk us through because I don't remember shit.
Yeah, so it was June 5th, 2011. It was getting into the height of fighting season, and northeast Afghanistan fighting season starts when the snow melts because that's when dudes start coming over from Pakistan and
Sure.
stuff like that. Kunar province was one of the hottest provinces in the country at that time, at the height of the Afghan war. And it's a crazy province because part of it was that's where not the Taliban, the Mujahideen beat the Russians during their war. It's very rocky, very mountainous, and stuff like that. The terrain fucking sucks. Um, but that's that province has all the documentaries and pretty much all the Medal of Honor. So pretty much all the Medal of Honor recipients from Afghanistan all come from Kunar, and then the one right above it in Nuristan. And then all the documentaries that you see, like Restrepo, Hornet's Nest, No Greater Love, Korengal, like they're all about Kunar province.
Sure.
It's like that's crazy. Um, but that particular morning, we were doing a movement to contact, meaning we were just going to roll out until somebody shot at us. It was early in the morning. I think we SP'd about 8. Um, we had 2 trucks that were supposed to move through the Wadi system and then 2 up on the road. And I think our Humvee was a older piece of shit. I don't even know how they kept that piece of garbage running. But fuck, man. But we had a minigun and then 2 240s in the back. One of the guys in the back had a 203 with an M4. The 18 Delta had his rifle, and then me and LT were up front, had our M4s, and then the other GNV had a basic 50, and then I want to say 1 or 2 240s on
Probably
that one.
probably 2. I think we all had 240s in the back.
But we fucking before we left, because obviously every operation that we ran in Chalet Valley, I drove for. So it's like I got pretty well good at knowing like what road to take, what road not to take, where the cuts off and the shits are. And I told them motherfuckers because they were showing it on the map, and I was like, hey, that's a dead end. We're gonna get to there, and we're gonna have to turn around.
Well, dude, I remember
If
specifically wearing my helmet that day. We never wore our Kevlars. I was like, this doesn't sound right, man.
I know it, and I told them I was like, hey, that Wadi has got high walls, but it's a dead end. We're not gonna be able to keep going. And they're like, no, we'll be okay. And I was like, yeah, okay. And we hit the point at like 8:15, 8:20, and the 2 other trucks kept going down the road. Our 2 trucks came down into the Wadi, and we got down in that fucking Wadi, and those fucking walls on either side were no shit, probably like 15, 20 feet high.
Yeah, for sure.
The boulders that were in the middle of this wadi were like the size of small taxi cabs.
Yeah, for sure.
And we we tried to drive it first, and it then got to the point to where we had to dismount and have the TCs walk us
Yeah.
and around all these rocks. And Peterson got out for us, and I think
Kunkel.
maybe Kunkel got out for Mutis's truck, and it was an L shape, and we worked all the way up to the 90-degree angle, and then everybody mounted back up, and then we both turned in to that angle, and when we turned into that angle, me, Sevy, and LT all at the same time was like, yo, somebody's standing right there.
Yeah, I remember that dude, actually. He didn't have a gun at the time. He didn't have an RPG at the time.
He didn't have shit in his hand at that time. But me and LT both told Sevy to keep an eye on him. And I heard Sevy turn on, he flipped the switch on the minigun to power it on. And this motherfucker was no shit, like 20, 25 meters ahead of us. Like, he was close as fuck.
Yeah. I remember his face and his man jams. I remember that shit.
Yeah. He saw us, and then he leaned down, and then came up again and didn't have anything. But then he went down again, and when he came up, he had an RPG. And he was the one that initiated that ambush.
Yeah.
And I don't know where the fuck his buddies were hanging out at, because nobody
everywhere. When we were dipping out of there, it felt like everywhere.
But he fired that RPG, and the first one that he shot landed off to our left, on the left side of my door. I don't know how the fuck he didn't hit us, because that bitch would have melted straight through that fucking glass. But like right there, I thought we were all fucking just done. But he fired, it landed to the left. Sebby fires his minigun, mows that bitch down. I'm like, that dude.
Swiss cheese.
He was gone. But then I noticed that the radios are all fucking going crazy inside the Humvee. LT's yelling. Sevy, who was the 18 Delta, he was our gunner. He'd been on plenty of deployments. And I looked up. I remember looking up at this man, and he cannot even stand up out of the gun, because there is so much fire coming at our truck. And I was like, holy fuck.
I remember just leaning, after getting gaining my consciousness back, I remember leaning on Weir and just having my 240 point at the top, and we just fucking lit up the ridgeline.
And dudes were coming from, I think by the end of it, there had to have been at least 10 dudes, based off where the type of fire, where it was coming from, and how effective it was.
Yeah, sure.
There was PKMs, RPGs, AK fire. After that initial burst, that's when Mutis's truck came and got online to fire at the first dude. But then everything, I don't really know what happened with their truck. But all I know is after Sebby shot the first dude, and then the rest of the ambush started, he yelled RPG, and honestly, I don't know how the fuck I heard it. But he yelled RPG, and I remember, because the shit was just tinking off the truck like crazy. I stood up in the driver's seat, stiff armed the wheel and just on the gas, because he didn't give me a distance and direction. So all I knew is an RPG was headed for this truck. The best thing I can do is move.
Yeah.
Hope the chance of moving into it was there, but I would rather try to move and dodge it than not move and get hit by it. So I sat down on the gas, I moved the truck forward, heard it impact. I didn't know how close to y'all it was, and I don't even think y'all realized y'all were hit at first.
Well, I mean, I think I was knocked unconscious for a minute, And I remember, like, because the story goes, Be Gay was looking down on me. And I was like, I guess I woke up and I was like, why the fuck aren't you shooting back? That was like the funny story when we came back. I just remember getting back in the truck or something and leaning on Weir. And we were just like, you said, like, really fighting for our lives to get the fuck out of there.
After that happened, and we scooted and I floored it, we then went around another right angle. And while we were going through that right angle, we're bouncing all around. Because the boulder. I remember looking over. I told Lieutenant Peterson, I said, we've got to get out of here. And what I wanted to do was, because I told these motherfuckers that there was a dead end.
Yeah.
We fought through, turned around right there and got out. But we decided to push through the kill zone. And as we're pushing through the kill zone, I don't think anybody else saw it but me and Lieutenant Peterson. But on the left-hand side, about our 10 o'clock, as we were coming up to it, a fucking huge chunk of the wadi wall blew out. And it was it had to have been an IED, because I didn't see a trail or anything. I don't think it was an RPG that hit it.
Sure.
But we both thought that it was an IED that went off that was supposed to blow out, that they blew early, because it'd have fucked us up even more if that would have hit us.
Sure.
But we continued to push. RPGs flying, fucking PKMs, AKs. Hell, there may have been some fucking grenades in there. I had no idea. All that blowing up, and so we finally push on about, I don't know, 50, 60 meters, and we get to the end of this wadi, and it's a fucking dead end. And he looks at me, and I look at him, and I didn't say shit. I just shook my fucking head, and I was like, well, I guess we got to fight back through that bullshit. He said, I don't know if it was over the radio or he said it. Somebody said, flip a bitch. And we just turned around and we hauled ass out of that motherfucker's fast. That one, I don't know how anybody didn't. I think they almost bounced Vinny out of the truck, and that's how he broke his tooth.
Yeah, that's the best part of the story, dude. Him getting on the medevac bird and the captain going like, he's not in the list, and the captain goes like this. I think he goes, and his face is just like, fuck you guys. I can't stand you guys.
Yeah. But we turned around and we head back into the kill zone, and it wasn't as bad as the initiation, but they were still fucking shooting.
Well, because the Top Gun trucks had their own firefight going on.
Yeah, totally separate than what we were in.
Yeah.
And because I remember LT calling over the radio to get help to see if they could see these motherfuckers so they could shoot them. And because we were down in the wadi, we could assume the risk, and they could just take them out from up top.
For sure.
We'd be okay to accept a risk. But they were in a fucking separate tick all on their own. So then we fight back through the kill zone, bouncing all around. Fucking an RPG blew out our tire, 2 tires, and then another RPG on the way out landed in between the wadi wall and Mutis's truck. I think, it was where Kunkel was sitting, the TC side of the Humvee.
Yeah.
And it looked like it got pulled back.
Yeah, the fucking door got peeled back like a can opener.
And we finally get out of there, get one behind the other, get up out of the wadi. And when we get out of the wadi, I don't even know how, I guess the June, so that was 25th. There was like a squad of 25th guys.
Really?
Yeah. They were, when we pulled out of the wadi, so it would have been southeast of where our position was. They would have been southeast of us. They were behind this like rock wall, and they were just fucking sitting there. Nobody was shooting.
Yeah, I remember that now. Oh my god, I totally forgot. Yeah.
Nobody was fucking shooting. They're just fucking sitting there. And then we get to a point to where like we're on line with Pooh Hill, and we park the trucks. The other 2 trucks are still in contact. The 25th dudes finally started dropping 120s from And I just remember when we looked on the other side of that wadi, the entire mountainside was on fire because I don't know what they were dropping, but I guess they were starting to Willie Pete that whole area because
Yeah, probably.
bad enough. But and then Novak said that he caused that whole fire with 1203, and we were calm down.
Of course.
I don't think.
My favorite part of this whole story is when Peterson's freaking out. We're trying to assess trying to assess Weir, and Novak's just sitting there going, "You know something? I love combat."
I'm like, Novak, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, Peterson's like, "Shut the fuck up, Novak."
But when we parked, and then y'all started noticing, like, hey, y'all are bleeding. That's when Sebi started to do his shit.
Yeah.
And we called in the 9 line. The other two trucks, they finished their shit. And bro, all 4 of our trucks just crippled back. I don't know how the fuck our 2 trucks made it back, but I remember we pulled up into Pinnage. We stopped our 2 trucks like where that little crow's nest tower was.
Yeah.
And motherfucker taking pictures of our truck. I got out of the truck and I was like, bitch, you're gonna fucking delete that shit. No, I'm not. And then I looked at Sebi, and Sebi was like, give me that goddamn camera right now.
Yeah, right.
But I don't know how the fuck, like, nobody got killed.
I know. It's like people are like, oh, it must have been a horrible day. Like, nah, man. Everybody survived. We're all fucking good. You know what I'm saying?
No.
And like, still, like, the whole point of the story, didn't, like the clinic, like the Afghan clinic, kind of like stab us in the back? Didn't we kind of tell them we were passing through and they ratted us out? Is that how it worked?
It was something like that because they had that little Afghan clinic that was in that white building out in the valley.
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was like that, the halfway point. But they told those, there was that village that was at the base of the mountain on the right. I think it was called like Yakachina or something, some shit like that. But we ended up doing that clearance mission into that village with the Afghan commandos after we got ambushed.
Yeah.
And they found so much shit that fucking time.
Well, we tried to get in that compound for a few times. There were a few instances where we were trying to get in there, and it was pretty nailed down.
The first time we went back there was the time where Lieutenant Peterson and Weir were up in that schoolhouse, and it was me, you, and Rogers, and one of the Terps, and it was just us. And we
just lighting shit up.
I'm just sitting here directing fire. You're fucking. That was the day that you thought you went deaf because Rogers rotated the 50.
Oh yeah, a 50 caliber rolled right over my fucking head, and that fucking lit my head up, man. Actually, I think I have a video of that day, or Ron has a video of that day, right? Or different day. I don't know.
No,
I know I have a video from Ron of like some of us doing something. I remember I think it was the same day where we were driving and an RPG went in behind our truck and in front of the truck and behind us. And like Lee just went right through, like, oh, that's how today's gonna go. yeah.
Fucking.
That's awesome. Yeah, see, you filled in a lot of the dots for me. Like, I didn't remember like all that. I guess that's interesting.
Well, see, when y'all left, you and Vinny and Weir, y'all went to. Did y'all go to Roll One?
We went to J-Bad. He went to Camp Dyer and J-Bad.
Yeah. So, like, once y'all went there, like, LT and me got checked, and I don't know if he ended up having issues, but I ended up getting a TBI from that day. But luckily, I didn't get like any like wounded like y'all did, because y'all got peppered like a bitch in the back. So.
Do you remember that one time in this is at where did we go with fifth group?
Joyce?
Yeah, remember that time the mortar went through the back door of Joyce and peppered our entire backyard? And someone caught it in the ass. I can't remember.
A rocket.
Who was it?
A 107 rocket that they fired off that base mountain that's right there in Ganjagal Valley on the north side of Joyce. and they fired a rocket, and it went straight between uh, the bee huts, hit the fucking Hescos, blew holes in our door, and then it was the 18 Bravo. I can't remember his
I
name.
can't remember his name either.
Uh, but the 18 Bravo took a piece of shrapnel in the ass. The very next fucking morning, that's when they got me and you, and they're like, "Hey, we want y'all to take y'all's fucking heavy machine guns with 1,000 rounds and hump for fucking 12 hours up this mountain. We'll
Yeah.
again."
That was a fucking shit show. For the audience, Huggy said 12 hours. We all ran out of water. We got so dehydrated, we got goosebumps. And your body's just trying to sweat water out. Oh, it was a horrible day. We were like in 3 fucking firefights that day. I remember one, you went to go take a shit. I remember you coming around the corner with your pants half down.
Let me tell you this shit.
Yeah, please do.
The rocket hits the bee huts down at fucking Joyce. 18 Bravo gets peppered in the ass. And then they're like, "Hey, I don't know like what little boy egos they had, but they were like, we're going to go get them."
Yeah.
And I was, this is a bad fucking idea. And I had a 249 with like 1,200 fucking rounds, food and water. That's it. No fucking helmet. I did have body armor on that day.
Yeah, we had body armor.
You had the 240, and then you had that dude that looked like Drake.
Yeah, he's a little bitch too. He's a big old bitch.
Yeah. The dude who looked like Drake they sent him, I don't know if they sent him from Joyce or Fenty or Bagram, but they sent him out there to get his fucking combat action badge.
Yeah.
So they put him as your AG, and we started walking at like 3 in the morning. Like 33 in the morning. And we walked up this fucking mountain for hours and hours. And for like 12 hours, we were just humping ass, just straight up. Every time I think we're getting to the top, we get to the top, and it's a false fucking summit. You got Joyce looking like this big.
Yeah.
When down, and you're like, well, this is cool. They can see everything from up here. But we got to that stopping point where there was like a rock formation, and then there was a little bit of houses, and then you could see like the rest of Gonjagal Valley, which I think is the same place Dakota Meyer got his.
Yes, it is.
But we sat there. It was nice and quiet, light breeze, nothing happening. And me and you were on this rock formation. I'm facing one way, you're facing the other. And I was like, yo, I got to take a shit. And I take my body armor off. I take that black bag off I had with all the ammo. And by this time, there was no food and water left. It was just ammo and weapons. But I put my weapon down, and no shit. And Tawny, my wife Tawny, she thinks this shit's fucking hilarious.
I thought it was too. I was hilarious.
I told her and you that I could hear somebody whistling, and they were going. And I was like, who the fuck is up here whistling? And I don't know if it was the Taliban. Could have been them. Could have been somebody else. I don't fucking know. But all I know is when I got done taking a shit, I put back on my body armor. I grabbed my bag and put it on. And the second that I grabbed my weapon, those motherfuckers opened up on me and you with a PKM. Yeah. And I'm just like trying to find something to get behind. Dude, beating our ass. And I remember, I don't know where you went, but I went past you and like down to the left a little.
Yes, I went down kind of a hill.
Yeah, to try to get into a position that I could get behind cover and then return fire. And my ass slipped. And when I slipped,
I remember this.
I rotated back to where I was facing contact to where I could start firing. But the way the terrain was, it was crappy and I didn't see. And from the middle of my thighs to my feet, I felt like I was hanging off a mountain. Like I couldn't feel anything below me. It was the weirdest feeling. And the team sergeant was like, you got more room, you just can't see it. So I finally slid down and finally was able to base up. But I started returning fire, and they're like, "Hey, don't shoot right there. You're shooting over so and so." And I was like, "I see him."
That was me, wasn't it?
No, it was. I think it was the team sergeant.
Oh, because I remember the shorty M4 guys. I'm not going to say their names. Were shooting over me.
Yeah. So we had both of them. We had the fucking Taliban shooting at us over us, and then we had them shooting over us. So we couldn't tell what was.
Yeah, I remember that.
And then they finally decided they wanted to break contact because they couldn't figure out where the fire was coming from, and nobody would cover us. So we're just bounding back, and then the whole fucking sprint down that mountain. We were so dehydrated, our muscles started cramping.
Yeah.
And I remember we had to have them. We got to the base of the mountain, and we sat there and waited. And Begay and Roberts and them, they brought the 2 MATVs.
Oh yeah.
And I remember when we were walking back into the hooch, that I got caught in the door, like my legs and my feet were cramped, and I couldn't move. And like for the next couple of days, it was miserable.
Dude, to add to that story, I remember Drake. I'm just gonna call him Drake for this reason. He'd be my assistant gunner. I remember getting to that hill, getting the 240 up, and I was having him feed me rounds. I remember him sliding really far down and pushing the rounds. I remember before we even started, I'm like, "Are you ready?" He goes, "Are you sure?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fucking sure. We need to return fire now." And then you know what's funny? He left the next day, didn't he? Or like a week later, he was gone, man. He didn't last long at all.
Like, fuck this.
Yeah, exactly. And like we were all kind of like, fuck him too, because he was not a good soldier. He was not cut out for that shit.
But like, I feel like the last part of deployment when we were with 5th Group, before we all started to reconsolidate with 3rd and then go home, like those 5th Group dudes, all they did was party, try to just do stupid shit, and like they didn't want to give our opinions.
I know, and we've been there. We've already been through this 100 fucking times. They want nothing to do with us, man.
It's there for 9 months, and like it's like the day where they wanted to escort that fucking forklift from Joy all the way down to Pinnage back, and they're like, "Yo, we're gonna take this route," and I'm like, "Fuck no, we ain't taking that road. Get blown the fuck up." And then we ended up getting blown the fuck up. We got into that other ambush with them where we were on what was that main road? California?
Yeah.
We got into California, and we get into this fucking village, and all the kids start scattering, and next thing we know, dipshits up in the mountains are shooting fucking discus at us, and there's just holes getting melted into the MATV about that fucking big.
Yeah, man.
And I don't even have an angle on these dudes. Can we like speed this up and get the fuck out of the kill zone? And they're like, "No, we're good. Let's just shoot." I'm like,
I know you're gonna remember this night. Remember the night we took out the Crow systems, and Roberts was my driver. I remember that specifically. And we this was kind of when we literally got into the middle of like a village. And I remember watching this building, and I'm talking to the team sergeant. I'm not gonna say his name, the team sergeant, and I'm like, "Hey man, there's like dudes running through the window." It's like, "Oh, it's fine." It's fine. He's like, I'm like, "Hey man, there's guys looking at us through the windows." Like, "It's fine, it's fine." I remember that third time, I'm like, "Hey man, they're shooting at us from those windows."
I remember that because you messaged me, but I think that was right after I left to go on R&R when Jackson.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's why Roberts was my fucking driver. Gotcha. Yeah, Roberts. No, Begay was my driver. Roberts was a gunner, and he was stoked because he's a normally mechanic, you know. Yeah, that's right. And dude, we almost fell fucking side of the mountain. We basically had to like leave the middle of the. We were getting shot at from the entire 360. We basically had to just leave. Like you said, like they were not very squared away for being ODA, to say the very least.
And then they had that night where we dropped them all off in that skinny valley, like south of Joyce, where they were trying to recruit motherfuckers for ALP.
Yeah.
And they ended up staying the night in the village with them, and every single one of those motherfuckers were Taliban. like every single one of them. Because
Well,
I
me,
remember when we were coming home, um, they were asking them that, like, they started to ask questions about that shit because the shipments of AKs and ammo for the ALP was late in Bagram, and they ended up finding out that that entire class that they had trained were fucking Taliban.
well,
And
remember when we found that fucking clip on that guy's phone of him executing ALP that we literally just indicted like a few months
exactly,
before?
exactly, and they were like, "Oh, no big fucking deal."
I
But
remember us joking. We're like, let's take this motherfucker and throw him in the burn pit. You know,
yeah,
for the record, we did not. You know, I know this is going to
yeah,
be on public, so we did not throw
that
him in the burn pit.
that ALP commander that they chose, the elder from that village that they chose to be the ALP commander, ended up being a Taliban sub commander.
It's what I said in the last podcast. I mean, the guy shaking your hand on Tuesday is shooting at you on Wednesday, man, and that's the absolute truth. It's the absolute. That's why we'll never win over there. That's why no one has won over there. All right, to shift gears a little bit. So now you're working for the government again.
Yeah,
Are you allowed to talk about that at all?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I ended up getting medically retired at the end of 2018. Obviously, I was here at Benning, which is where my family's from, so we just stayed here. Um,
Lucky you.
yeah, which was nice because we didn't have to worry about going through the stressors or moving on top of me getting out. Um, I didn't really, I did not anticipate me going through a med board, but because of my brain injury and because of all the other shit that started to catch up, they're like, hey, you probably want to go ahead and get a med board. Um, and at first I was scared because it was not on my list of things to do. And obviously, as providers for the family, we always worry about money. Um, so I didn't know how that was going to work, but everything ended up working out okay. I got medically retired. I kept all my benefits. I get paid by the VA, paid by the Army. Um, I spent a month, a month off where I did nothing. I just stayed at the house, did nothing. Um, I quit dipping, smoking, and drinking after I got out, so that was cool.
Yes.
I wouldn't recommend doing that shit cold turkey. I had a panic attack. But I ended up getting a call one day while I was at a TBI appointment after I had gotten out, and it was a recruiter, and the number was from Washington D.C. And I was like, "Well, I don't know anybody from here." Picked it up. He was like, "Hey, man, I found your LinkedIn profile. Are you looking for work? Blah blah blah." And I was like, "Yeah, man." I was like, "Where at?" And he was like, "Ranger Regiment." And I was like, "Doing what?" He was like, "The position's called a content man," which it ended up being like a school's NCO, like just running RASP 1 and RASP 2.
Yeah.
That was cool. It was an office job. Didn't have no fucking windows. I had to dress up in Sunday best, and I mean it was fine, but it wasn't really my jam. But then I found a contract a couple months later on Sand Hill where they train infantry, and it was for a infantry instructor and slash advisor. And I was like, cool. I just got out, been in the infantry all these years. I was like, this will be fun. I did that for a year, where they implemented the new 22-week program. So that was cool. It was the position was almost like a drill sergeant, but I worked 9 to 5, and I didn't have to scuff anybody up. I just taught, instructed, oversaw, advised, and stuff like that. I actually really enjoyed that job. Kept me busy, mentally and physically. And then that contract ended January of 2020. And then that's when COVID started happening. So our contract did not get renewed. But then the wife got pregnant and had a baby. And because I had been gone all the time with Jackson and Wyatt, I still applied to jobs, but I wasn't. I was okay with staying at home because
Sure.
I got to see all that and witness all that and hang out with baby girl and stuff like that. And then this job now, I work for a basic training unit on Sand Hill. I'm their operations technician. So basically, how I guess you could call it like a training room clerk, I guess. I handle all their DA-31s, their orders, their training records, weapons quals, ACFTs. When it comes to Article 15s, I write all that, send it up to legal, kick people out. I basically just work for the commander, but I try to stay fluid and work for everybody. That way, one, I stay busy, and two, it helps alleviate everything else. That way, the drills in the first sergeant can be focused on training the infantrymen that we're going to have to rely on.
All right, so before we wrap it up, we're kind of reaching that point. I want you to tell probably the best story of infantry or basic training kids. I mean, or two. Whatever you. I know you have some good ones. Whether it's funny, fucking retarded, whatever it is.
I mean, I have one from when we were in basic.
Yeah, send it. Yeah.
Because these kids now are kind of stupid. like when we were privates, we were just dumb privates.
Yes.
These kids are. I hate using this word, but they're fucking retarded. I would say the worst basic training story that I ever witnessed was when I went through basic training. We had a drill sergeant that drove a Jeep Wrangler, and it was competition orange, and it was close to graduation, and this motherfucker drove his Jeep into the CTA, threw a bucket of mud on, woke up a platoon and had them wash it, and sent them back to bed, and then did it again for every other platoon. It was just outrageous. And then I had another sergeant who he told us at the beginning of basic that he was not DA selected. He didn't volunteer. I mean, he was DA selected. He didn't volunteer to be a drill sergeant. And he was like, privates. He said, this whole cycle, all I'm going to do is smoke cigarettes, drink Dr. Pepper, and boat. That motherfucker did. And he fucked our world down. And every time he fucked our world down, he was smoking a cigarette, drinking a Dr. Pepper, sitting in a fucking office chair in the CTA, just wheeling his little ass around. And anytime we went out to the field, his ass was pig hunting instead of training us. It was just fucking garbage.
That's awesome. I'm trying to think of I can tell you that when we went through, it's not the same army. I remember like someone trying to take their life. And instead of like dealing with it appropriately, we woke up next morning, he was low crawling around the track, and we all ran in circles around him laughing at. We were forced to laugh at him. Like that shit would not happen today.
Oh, absolutely not.
Crazy.
There's shit that was just like normal to us that dudes you'd probably end up in jail.
Yeah, right. And the first second I got off the bus, you're holding your fucking bag over your head, or your duffel bag, and I had drill sergeant spit a loogie on my glasses. I mean, that was my introduction to Fort Benning. I'm like, all right, I got it, and that's how it's going to be.
Absolutely terrible. I knew people, especially like people that are older than us. They're like, oh yeah, I'd love to go back to basic training. I would never in my fucking life go back to fucking basic training at Fort Benning. It's cool now, but like if I had to go through it with the same drills, the same people, like all that, I would never fucking go through that shit again. That's what it's done. Hell no. That shit was so hard and just miserable. God, I remember the day before Family Day. So week 9, I think week 9 was our Family Day, and then we came back and transitioned in because ours was 14 weeks then. I remember before Family Day, the day before Family Day, we were in this field, and I'm not going to say his name, but I'm sure everybody would know who the fuck I'm talking about. He had us low crawling through a field, which cool, no big deal, whatever. But you tie your CCOs, your M68 CCO optic down with 550 cord.
Of course.
Now they do it with the wire, which works a lot better, but it was 550 cord. This dude went around and pulled on people's fucking tie downs.
Oh, sure.
Until and like, obviously some were fucked up and they were just like, boop. But like, the ones that were like tied down good, who he just didn't like, he would put a fucking boot on your weapon while you were holding it. And then 550 cord. And then he had like, no shit, like 20 or 30 of us in the platoon. I don't even know if he did it to everybody else in the company, but definitely us. And he was like, all right, if your tie down was fucked up, you got to write me a fucking, I don't even know how long essay of the importance of tie downs in Army equipment. And it needs to be submitted by, I think it was like 5 or 5:30 the next morning. Like, don't turn it in, you're not going on fucking family day. So like now everybody's fucking stressed because their families are already in town.
Yeah.
And shit like that. So like family day for us was a big fucking thing. And we all stayed up all night writing these fucking essays. Turned them in, and his bitch ass walks in, takes them, throws them right in the fucking trash. And he's like, all right, get ready, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, you motherfucker. Like, he's shit.
That's how it used to go, man. That's how it went. That's awesome. Well, hey, man, it was really good to talk to you. I really appreciate you coming on. We have to do this again.
Oh, absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely.
All right, listeners, thanks for listening. Always outnumbered, never outgunned. Tune in for next time.